Hassan Badir, an operative in Hezbollah's Unit 3900, and the Quds Force of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Quds, was eliminated in an airstrike on the Dakhia neighborhood of Beirut overnight on Monday. A statement by the IDF, the Shin Bet, and the Mossad declared that Badir acted in coordination with Hamas and assisted terrorists in advancing an attack against Israeli civilians, while Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar called him a ticking time bomb. And meanwhile, against the backdrop of the continued fighting in the Gaza Strip, a new military plan is taking shape aimed at expanding Israel's hold in additional areas in the north and the south of the territory of Gaza. The purpose is to create security zones under IDF control, implementing a policy of evacuating the local population and changing the outline of humanitarian aid. And speaking of which, in Gaza, they are once again talking about hunger and running out of flour and other supplies, but Israeli intelligence estimates that there is sufficient supplies for another 50 days. IDF spokesperson in Arabic, Colonel Avichai Aderi, also issued an evacuation warning to the residents of northern Gaza, while in the south, large numbers of residents have already begun moving out of Rafah as the IDF continues engaging with Hamas terrorists in several places all over the Gaza Strip. The operation is continuing even during the Eid al-Fitr Muslim holiday, because even after more than a year of fighting, there are still tunnels in the Gaza Strip. The IDF destroyed one tunnel yesterday that was more than a kilometer long, and in the last 24 hours, dozens of terrorists were eliminated in airstrikes. Even while this is going on, the major ground operation is not yet begun. Everyone is still waiting to see how Hamas will react to the latest proposal made to them by Israel through the mediators. However, Hamas has continued to fire rockets in the direction of communities in the Negev, including a rocket that was fired from the north of the Gaza Strip on Tuesday morning towards the Israeli city of Sderot. While Hamas has expressed willingness to release 5 living hostages, amongst them Idan Alexander, who holds American and Israeli citizenship, in exchange for 50 days of ceasefire, Israel insists on releasing 11 hostages, including Alexander, in exchange for 40 days of a ceasefire. This brings us back to the attack that was about to occur in Israel. What we know so far, and what we can publicly reveal about the elimination of the senior Hezbollah official, exposes an extensive terror network targeting Israelis in Israel and around the world ahead of the spring holidays. The National Security Council of Israel has given published heightened warnings about Iranian Hamas and ISIS activity in dozens of countries. And closer to home, satellite images revealed IDF activity deep in Syria and Lebanon, according to newly revealed documentation. The most significant presence is in the demilitarized buffer zone in Syria, where IDF forces have taken positions and set up checkpoints. And in recent weeks, military trucks have also been observed operating along the buffer zone. And meanwhile, in Judea and Samaria, the IDF is launching a new operation which has already resulted in security forces seizing a bomb lab and arresting nearly 30 terror suspects. And further afield, the United States attacked a meeting of senior Houthi officials in Yemen over the last 24 hours. TBN Israel's senior Middle East analyst Mati Shoshani will take us behind the scenes of our neighborhood, the Middle East, as 0 hour has arrived in the confrontation between Iran and Israel. Although there has been no formal declaration, the truth is plain to see that Iran and Israel are in a frontal and open war, a reality that will shape and influence Israel's security perception for many years to come. We have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on day 545 of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shiite militias in Iraq, and all the armed groups in this region who are operating under the command of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, which is the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East. And a moment before we begin, I want to invite you to press the subscribe button so that you remain tuned to the truth in real time and never miss an episode of Boots on the Ground. And if you've supported our Rebuild Israel campaign, thank you so much. And head up, there's a special surprise coming your way very soon. It's very exciting. If you haven't joined yet, please visit tbn.org/rebuildisrael and help us rebuild this country. On Tuesday evening, it was confirmed that Hassan Ali Mahmoud Badir is the terrorist whom IDF forces eliminated on Monday evening in an airstrike on the Dakhia neighborhood of Beirut after he acted in cooperation with Hamas and assisted them in promoting a severe attack against Israeli civilians in the immediate time frame. It is not yet possible to publish what the target was for the attack that was planned and led by Badir, an operative in the Unit 3900 of the Hezbollah terrorist organization, as well as the IRGC-Quds Force. But connecting a few dots that can be published may indicate that this was a different and large-scale event. Unit 3900 is Hezbollah's elite unit responsible for carrying out attacks against Israeli targets in Israel and around the world. In some cases, it operates sub-agents, often Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists, in order to distance the fingerprints of Iran and Hezbollah from attacks that may lead to criticism and sanctions against those organizations in the international arena. With all that in mind, a statement issued jointly by the IDF spokesperson, the Shin Bet, and the Mossad stated, among other things, that Hassan Badir acted recently in cooperation with the Hamas terrorist organization, directed Hamas terrorists, and assisted them in advancing a severe attack plan against Israeli civilians in the immediate time frame and aimed at harming Israeli civilians, and therefore Hassan Badir was attacked immediately to remove the threat. These activities of the Hezbollah terrorist organizations constitute a violation of the understandings between Israel and Lebanon and pose a threat to the State of Israel and its citizens. So here, at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on any development regarding the terror organizations. And now, we will move on to the IDF's battle against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. It's a dangerous battle, and we ask you to pray for our soldiers and for the peace of Jerusalem. After the warnings issued by the IDF spokesperson in Arabic, large numbers of Gazan residents began evacuating from Rafah on Monday towards the Mawasi area in the center of the Gaza Strip. In footage that was distributed on Arab networks, hundreds of Rafah residents were seen moving north in vehicles and even on foot. The announcement by the IDF spokesperson came in parallel with continued airstrikes in the Strip in the last 24 hours. So amidst all of this kinetic activity, Israel is awaiting Hamas's response to the counter-proposal that Jerusalem conveys to the mediators. While Hamas expressed willingness to release 5 living hostages, including Idan Alexander, who holds American citizenship as well as Israelis, in exchange for 50 days of ceasefire, Israel, for its part, insists on releasing 11 hostages, including Alexander, in exchange for 40 days of a ceasefire. Israel also objects to carrying out the release in phases and insists that 11 hostages, including Alexander, be released on the first day of the ceasefire. And regarding to the release of Palestinian security prisoners from Israeli jails, Israel insists on keeping the keys that were as part of the previous deal, while Hamas is demanding larger keys, meaning more Palestinian prisoners for Israeli hostages. And meanwhile, until Hamas responds to the counter-proposal, Israel is increasing military pressure in the Gaza Strip and acting according to the plan formulated by the IDF with the approval of the Defense Minister Israel Katz. The main point of the plan is to seize significant territories in the Gaza Strip that will become security zones under IDF control, evacuate the residents, and further halt humanitarian aid. We can expect to see IDF forces advancing after giving warning to residents to evacuate. In the southern sector of the Gaza Strip, the IDF plans to significantly expand its areas of control beyond the well-known Philadelphia corridor, which is the border between Gaza and Egypt. And at the same time, the forces will operate with great intensity from the air and on the ground, carrying out softening up operations aimed at reducing the risk to IDF forces operating in those areas. And in addition, these operations are also intended to ensure that there is no presence of Israeli hostages in the mentioned areas and to expand the security zones. And a senior security official added that this is the peak of military pressure on Hamas right before a wide ground incursion. Hamas is suffering a significant blow here. The goal of the operation, as outlined in Israel, is the release of the hostages and to assist U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff advance his plans. If Hamas agrees to the deal, it will be possible to walk back the operation, and this increases the likelihood of a deal before Passover. However, there are other factors that need to be considered. Israel's intelligence echelon has warned that Hamas is working together with Iran to expand the smuggling routes for weapons and other contraband through Africa, with the goal of building up their power inside the Gaza Strip. Therefore, Israel insists on maintaining a buffer zone in order to protect the communities around Gaza. With all of this in mind, the assessment in Israel is that Hamas will not agree to part with all the remaining hostages, and that is why we are insisting that with the renewal of the ceasefire, 11 of them be released. A security source says that there is an opportunity here. We cannot miss it. We are maximizing the military pressure, and it's a disaster for Hamas's perspective. If there is a deal, it will happen precisely because of this current pressure. And regarding the plan for voluntary immigration from the Gaza Strip, surveys carried out at Israel's initiative showed that at least 40% of Gaza residents want to leave Gaza for a third country, and 90% of Gazan academics want to leave. Prime Minister Netanyahu is leading activity via the Mossad to locate countries that are prepared to observe Palestinians, and there are reportedly serious talks amongst these lines taking place with several countries. So here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development in the Gaza sector, and now we will move on to the latest developments in our neighborhood, the Middle East. But the second before that, keep spreading the truth, share, and follow us. And most importantly, don't forget to check our YouTube channel, TBN Israel, and click that subscribe button. I want to take a moment to thank the brave soldiers and the security forces that are still fighting to keep Israel safe and bringing our hostages home. During my reserve service this past year, I saw firsthand the sacrifices that these recruits make, some even serving over 200 days a year. It's a battle, physically and spiritually. For me, daily prayer gave me the strength I needed. But I also found a real boost in Vinia, an incredible Israeli supplement made from red grape cells. It increases blood flow to the heart, brain, and muscles, helping you stay energized, sharp, and ready for any challenge. And it's not just capsules. You can enjoy Vinia as coffee or tea for a fresh, healthy start every morning. I relied on it during my service, and I still do. So try it for yourself. Visit www.vinia.tbnisrael.com or call 800-638-1944. You won't regret it. Now, back to the news, and we'll switch our focus to the rising tension with Iran. The situation is heating up moment by moment, and it seems that the United States and Israel are closer than ever to striking Iran. Israel will not accept the presence of nuclear weapons in Iran's hands, and it operates in close coordination with the Trump administration. And beyond that, intelligence assessments indicate that Iran is at an unprecedented low point, and in fact, the Iranian axis is broken. Put these things together, and from Israel's point of view, 2025 is a year of opportunity regarding Iran, as there is an erosion in Tehran's defensive and offensive capabilities. With all of this in mind, Israel's dialogue with the United States on the Iranian issue is significant, but we must also remember that these factors combine to raise tension inside Iran, and it may attack Israel out of a sense of desperation. Another possibility is a preemptive military strike on the United States strategic airbase on the island of Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. Hints that such a strike are being planned were dropped by a senior Iranian official in an interview he gave with the British Telegraph portal on Tuesday evening. And according to the report, senior military commanders in Iran have been asked to advance the military move that would precede a possible US attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. And according to the report, the attack is supposed to be carried out using missiles and UAVs, drones. TBN Israel's senior Middle East analyst Mati Shoshani will take us behind the scenes of what is going on and what it's all about.
We're now at a point where it seems like everything in this region between the US, the Iranians, Israel and all their proxies, or the Iranian proxies, is on a boiling point. In the last couple weeks, we've gone from vague threats by the US towards the Iranians, by the Iranians towards the US and Israel, to the point where action is trying to be taken. And I'm going to outline the next couple minutes what's been happening in this region and how close we are to a tipping point in the relationship between the US, Iran, and Israel. Iran is trying to set up another fire in this part of the region to divert attention from what they're doing and to use it as a threat against the US from using power against them. At the same time, US strikes against the Houthis in northern Yemen continue because the Houthis continue to launch missiles. And all above this, we have the Iranians that are threatening direct attacks against US forces that are amassing in Diego Garcia, which, trust me, I didn't know where this was before we started talking about this just a couple weeks ago, which is an island in the Indian Ocean where the US is amassing forces to strike within Iran. Now, how did we get to this moment? How are we at a point where we're talking about actively going into war between Israel, Iran, the US, and possibly several other countries and proxies in this region? Well, it's been a treacherous and complicated road leading to this moment. First of all, Trump comes into office and he makes it very clear that he is not willing to go on with business as usual with the Iranians. What does that mean? The Iranians have been systematically delaying, stalling, wasting time in negotiations about their nuclear capabilities as it relates to Israel and threatening this region for years now. President Trump comes back into office and he says, look, we've gone down this route before, we know what you're planning to do, and let me unpack that for you. The Iranians realize that if they are forced into an agreement that dismantles their military nuclear capability completely, they'll be publicly humiliated, and a government that is internally already weakened compared to its society, already pressured internally, will lose even more of its grip on its society, and that might be, in their mind, the straw that will break the back of the Iranian Islamic regime, where they lose power over their people. I want to remind you that last time we went down this route, between the Houthis and the Iranians with their limited attacks back at the time, attacks on trade, attacks on Saudi assets, it was sufficient to stop most of the global trade through the Suez Canal, which is something that dramatically and immediately affects the Egyptian economy and the global trade of dry goods and oil. And what that does to global markets and global commodities is it raises the price of oil, it raises the price of dry goods to the point where there's a dramatic effect on the global economy. And that's something that no one wants. So where does that leave us? That leaves us at a place where right now we're this close from full-on war with the Iranians. You need to remember that it's been 15, going on 16 months at this point where we've been at constant conflict. Myself, my kids, our team members and their kids, we've been repeatedly going to the bomb shelters to deal with the threat of Houthi bombs that are coming into Israel, and they are, of course, initiated, supplied by the Iranian revolutionary regime. And because of that, and because of the imminent threat of Iranian disrupting forces and violence in this region, we must take action, we must be prepared to any kind of attack. And I can't state this in any stronger words, the Israeli Air Force and the Israeli people are ready to fight against the Iranians. Not only that, I think everyone in the Israeli public understands that if we don't stand strong against them, we stand the chance to go back to where we were before this war, to a place where the threat of the Iranian government looms over our heads, and that's something we simply can't live with. One last thought. A war or full-on conflict with Iran isn't just any other war. This is something we haven't seen in this region ever before. Iran is a strong fighting force. They have a substantial army in the shape of the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, that is equipped and trained to disrupt trade and disrupt the governance of countries throughout this region. They've been fighting a proxy war in this region for most of my life, not just adult life, but my life altogether. They've been a force that's been disrupting and spreading terrorism and violence. And when we go to war with Iran, if that day happens, it will reshape this region. It will leave Iran, or specifically the Iranian government, in a pile of burning debris of what their government used to be, and it will reshape the trade, the governments, and the power balances of this region. Have no doubt, Israel, and of course through its main ally, the US, will be victorious in this conflict against the Iranians. And when that happens, that will be the dawn of a new day for the people of Iran, for the people of Israel, and for everyone around this region. And let me remind you that everything in the end goes back to people. The people of this region have been suffering the violence and the disruption and the devastation that the Iranian Islamic regime brings to this part of the world. And they deserve better than that. And what this war could bring temporary violence and disruption, but in the long run, bringing down the Islamic government, the radical government that's been leading the Iranian people for decades, is the right way to go. And that's the only way where things get better for the people of this part of the world.
Thank you, Mati Shoshani, for all the information you shared with us. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development between Iran and the United States. And now, we will shift our focus to Israel's northern arena. In the Syrian sector, Israel is concerned about increased terrorist activity by Hamas from that country and from Lebanon, and has conveyed warning messages to Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara, also known as Abu Muhammad al-Julani, stating that if he allows the terrorist organization to operate against Israel from his country's territory, he will be harmed. Sources in Syria have reported over recent months that dozens of Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad operatives were imprisoned by the regime of former Syrian President Bashar Assad, but they were released by al-Julani's forces along with thousands of others in the first hours after the Assad's downfall. Partially in response to these reports, the IDF has deployed forces in a buffer zone in southern Syria along the border with the Golan Heights, and also reinforced units guarding the border with Lebanon. Satellite images published on Monday by the New York Times indicate that the IDF is reinforcing this security infrastructure in Syrian and Lebanese territories adjacent to the border with Israel in order to prevent threats to the northern communities of Israel. Based on the revealed documentation, the most significant entrenchment is in the demilitarized buffer zone in Syria, where IDF forces have taken positions and set up checkpoints, but the deployment of forces goes beyond even the buffer zone, which was established after the Yom Kippur War in 1973 and extends deeper into Syrian territory. Extensive construction activity can be seen in the satellite photographs, including apparent efforts to repair and reinforce abandoned Syrian army positions, as well as entirely new outposts and observation posts. Similar activity has also been documented in Lebanon. According to the report, the IDF established outposts in 5 locations in southern Lebanon, despite the original ceasefire agreement that included a commitment to withdraw in January. So here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development regarding the northern arena. And as always, we ask you to keep spreading the truth, share, and follow us. And most importantly, don't forget to click the subscribe button so that you remain tuned to the truth in real time and never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. Switching our focus once again to the situation in Judea and Samaria, IDF forces from the Kfir Brigade and the Shin Bet forces operating in Tulkarem as part of the operation to thwart terror in northern Samaria recently located a bomb-making workshop, which they demolished. As part of a wider operation including elements from the Commander Brigade, the Nachal Brigade, reservists, and the Shin Bet forces in the villages of Kabatia and Tamun in the Menashe Brigade sector, 12 wanted persons were recently arrested. 15 other wanted individuals have been arrested in the last few days. So once again, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development in the matter, and we ask you to help us by sharing our videos on YouTube and following us on social media. You can also help by making a donation at our website or by clicking on the donation button here on YouTube. Our website is tbnisrael.com/give. Now, we switch our focus once again to the American operation against the Houthis in Yemen, where against the backdrop of intense attacks on Houthi positions over the last several days, President Donald Trump posted a public announcement on Monday evening through his Truth social network account. The post said, "We're just getting started and the real pain is still ahead, both for the Houthis and for their sponsors in Iran. The Iranian-backed Houthi terrorists have been crushed by our relentless strikes over the past 2 weeks. Many of their fighters and leaders are no longer with us. Their capabilities that threaten shippings in the region are being swiftly destroyed. Our attacks will continue until they are no more a threat to the freedom of navigation in the Red Sea." The president added an ultimatum for the Houthis, saying, "Stop shooting at American ships and we will stop shooting at you. Otherwise, we're just getting started and the real pain is still ahead, both for the Houthis and their sponsors in Iran." And meanwhile, media outlets affiliated with the Houthis reported that in the last 24 hours, the United States carried out 18 strikes in Yemen, while Houthi spokesperson Yair announced on Sunday that the terror organization fired cruise missiles and drones at the United States aircraft carrier in the Red Sea and will continue to support Hamas until there is a ceasefire in Gaza. All of this comes amidst a significant buildup of American forces in the area, and recent satellite images published at the end of the week show that the United States strategic base in the Indian Ocean, there are at least 5 B-2 strategic bombers, about a quarter of the United States advanced bomber fleet. At the same time, the aircraft carrier Carl Vinson left the island of Guam in the Far East on its way to the area, and it will join the aircraft carrier Harry Truman, which has been deployed in the Red Sea and has been participating in operations against the Houthis since March 15. Like Mati said, in Iran, the Revolutionary Guards know that all of these assets, these US military assets, are more than capable to deal with the Houthis, and that they're actually posing a threat to Iran. But so far, they are not convinced that they should agree to President Trump's demand to enter into negotiations that would see the end of their nuclear ambitions. Instead, they are making plans to launch their ballistic missiles at US military assets in the region, including the base in Diego Garcia, as well as possibly in Turkey and elsewhere. There is also a plan to unleash Shiite militias against US bases in Iraq and Syria, and possibly launch new attacks against Israel, as well as all infrastructure in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. So here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development on the subject, and we ask you to join us in praying for the American warriors who are in the skies and at sea, fighting shoulder to shoulder with Israel against Iran's murderous terror axis. We also ask you to keep spreading the truth about the war between good and evil. And it is very important that you will not stop to support Israel. Let's pray together for Israel. Let's pray for our hostages to return home soon, fast. Let's pray for the IDF soldiers, for the US soldiers, for all our allies that are defending us against these terrorists in this region. Let's pray for all the civilians that are affected by these terrorists, wherever they are, if they're in Yemen, if they are in Lebanon, Syria, Judea and Samaria, in the Gaza Strip. Let's pray for God's love to touch their hearts and for this war to end some way, in a miraculous, unbelievable way that only God can make it happen. And let's unite in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.